is the Living 1982 podcast. Were you into the punk scene in the very early 80s or someone who discovered the genre along the way? Well, we're doing some deep diving into the Seattle punk scene and sharing the story behind a band that was very short-lived but made a lasting impact with members going on to being in some of the biggest bands in the world. Their debut album was never released back in the day but is finally out now. This is the story of The Living.
And
A part
our
of it.
special guest today is Criss Crass, the instigator of The Living.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I want to say that I'm not trying to be super cool with the shades. I went to the doctor today and I got my eyes kind of messed up. So that's why and I think I look cool too, but
Yeah. I'm downstairs. Otherwise, I put on some shades too. I take these off or put them up to the.
I mean, this one's kind of fuzzy. Yeah.
Yeah. We can do that kind of thing. We can do that, but hey,
it's good. Okay, so back to this thing. Yeah, I mean,
So-
that was one. Go ahead.
there's obviously a lot of things for us to talk about.
There is.
I met you probably at your first was your first show with the radios?
Yeah, it was at the monastery, and then it became the sanctuary.
Oh, sure.
It was my first show, and it might have been at that show you were at. I know El Duce was at that show, and you can hear him in the background. But then there was another show at the IOGT Hall.
Of course, yeah.
And I think, and that was with the Fish Sticks, Rob Morgan's band.
Yeah. We did find the poster for that, but then the monastery one was an early show for the radios, which Kim from the Fastbacks was also in, and
Yeah, she was with me in my first band.
yeah. And
That was February of '79.
but you weren't the first drummer in the radios, were you?
No,
No, maybe Lee Lumsden
Can't remember
was the drummer
Go ahead.
before that, right?
What is it? Huh?
Was it Lee Lumsden, the drummer in the radios before? I'm just trying to
I think it
remember.
might have been. It might have been Lee.
Yeah, because there's I think maybe a photo of the first radio show from later in '78, also at the IOGT Hall, but I think it was with my band, the Cheaters, and the radios, and there's some good pictures from that one. Okay, so you're playing in the radios with our buddy Alan, and was John Blattenbauer, Johnny Vinyl, was he in the radios at that point?
It was first
Or
Jeff
was it Dave Fisher on
Fisher
organ?
was right.
Oh,
So we were keyboards, bass, Kim on bass, Alan fronting the band, singing, playing guitar, and me playing drums. And then I don't know why Dave Fisher left, why that didn't work out, but then we got Johnny Vinyl and he played guitar. So we had two guitars then.
Right, and that's the lineup that played like at Washington Hall, I believe, right? Maybe,
Yeah.
Whenever that was. So the radios everybody just kind of fizzled out. Maybe Alan changed his mind, whatever. And how did you meet up with Duff and Andy?
Well, this is interesting. In Andy's podcast, he said I just showed up one day at Duff's. And I'm sorry, here's the deal. Duff's older brother, Matt McKagan, is my age. We're like 3 years older than Duff. And in elementary school, I could walk to elementary school from my house, and Duff's house was about 4 blocks away. So after school, Matt and I would come down from elementary school and play at Matt's house. And Duff was there. He was kind of like the tag along because he was younger. So I really knew Duff from a very early age, but we didn't. Then we grew apart because I went to Ep.9 and he was still in grade school, and so we grew apart, and then we re-met maybe in high school in my senior year, I think, junior or senior year of high school, and I'm not really sure how we met. We re-met. I might have just gone and visited Matt for some reason. I don't know, but then, yeah, I did just sort of show up, and we started, well, actually, Duff and I and Garth Brandenburg played in a band while I was still in high school, and it was with a singer named Mark Twight, and we high school girls, narrow-minded girls. I remember that was one of the songs. But Duff played bass in that, and I played drums in that band. And so really that was me and Duff's first band. And then the Veins, happened. I think it happened before I did my rockabilly thing. But, I was in this band with Blackie called the Crocodiles, and Duff even joined in on that band for a few gigs. So Duff and I played in a few bands, like at least 3 bands together before we started, before we got to the point of the living. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you about that, whenever.
So the Veins is also an interesting band, because it was you and both you and Duff were in that band, and that was, you had original tunes, and we're a kick-ass punk band.
Yeah, I kind of thought that in some ways we were sort of a prototypical teenage punk band, trying to be fast, play like the Ramones, but we're on that cusp of hardcore too. So because hardcore was coming up, so we were trying to play a little faster than the Ramones maybe on some of the songs, but
for sure
we were goofy kids, but it's amazing how I think good we got in the short amount of time that we played together.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the Vein single is killer. Great.
Yeah, you had something to do with the single. It's on No Threes, and it's the 3rd single on No Threes, so it's number 4 because no threes.
There would be no 3s in the catalog.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, for sure. There'll be no 3s in the catalog numbers there.
You remember that, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny, and then well, that Vein single it's been bootlegged a lot, and it ended up on these Killed by Death punk comps.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The Killed by Death comps?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, those are great. And 3 of the songs ended up on 3 different volumes.
I'd Killed by Death. Yeah, the No Threes.
And so that really pissed me off.
No Threes record label has a pretty good history with the Killed by Death comps. I think Accident,
yeah.
The Cheaters, Iceman is on one. The Veins, Silly Killers. They even took the Silly Killers cover for one of the Killed by Death comps.
Was that the one with the weird looking wrestler?
Yeah. They took that and used that as the cover for one of the.
Yeah, that's great.
So so that's pretty cool. I feel sort of honored to be bootlegged as often as.
It kind of pissed me off. I'm like, God damn it! I'm bootlegging my stuff. I have to buy my own copies of this, at various record stores. Because of course I wanted them. I wanted the comps because there's all this other great punk stuff on it. And my friend who's like really into record selling and buying, he's like, no, that's really a compliment. That means that like they thought your single was worth bootlegging, and it makes it more available to the public. It gets it out there more, so then it makes the actual single more collectible and worth more. And I said, oh, okay. I guess that's all right.
Yeah, that's cool. Not that that's not going to play out in generating any income for you or anybody, because for obvious reasons. But anyway, at least it means that some people like the single, and
And so apparently it's been bootlegged as a single too, which.
Right, and there'll be a new version of the Vein single coming out in a few months.
Right, correct? And that's what I was leading to, that you're involved in that too, because you had, what'd you have? You didn't have the tapes of it, did you?
No, I didn't have the tapes of the Veins. I just did a copy off a very perhaps unplayed copy of the 45.
Okay, yeah, that's best I could hope for. I don't know where those tapes are, but that's really cool. It's going to be coming out this summer, 5 copies, and I just wanted to show you one thing. This is something that I was really proud of. There's this book. It's called The Album Cover Art of Punk Rock. And it's got everything. Everybody's in there, right? Just all these cool 45s. But anyways, can you see? Let's see.
Oh yeah, down there is the Vein single.
Right.
Lift it up a little bit. Lift it up a bit. Up, 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 and now move to one side. Stop. Hold it right there. Yeah, there's the Vein single in the top in a nicely done book of punk record covers. Our
Right.
friend, our bandmate and our art director Randall Fair made that.
And
cover.
I was just going to say, we got to give Randall Fair credit because, you know, he did a good job on that cover.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, for somebody that was still in high school at the time.
Dang. Yeah, I mean, they liked it enough to put it in that book, and
Yeah.
I was very
And
happy.
Don Meyer also worked. We horned in on his design job for the movie theater chain to go in there and paste it together on his on the clock.
What'd you say? What?
Oh, John Meyer, who was my other high school buddy, who had a job cutting and pasting the movie theater ads every day.
Oh, I see.
So he worked in an art studio, and so they had all the stuff we needed to.
Oh, that's where all that's all these
So
cutouts.
John Meyer, Randall Fair, shout out to them, the Veins.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the Veins play 3 shows, I think, and
No, this is another falsehood.
Okay.
Okay, so I was thinking about it, and we played the IO or the Lowhurst Rec Center. The Fastbacks made their debut, and I think the Veins may have made their debut that night too. And then Psychopop, which became Pop Defect eventually when Tom went off to start the Human, Tom Price. So that was the first one. We did one at a hall at the base of Queen Anne. Forget that hall. And it was with Weenus and who else? Oh, the Missing Link. I got to do double duty that night because I got to play drums in the Missing Link. And then there was a band between us and the Veins. And then the Veins played, so I got to play guitar too. That was a really great night. There wasn't a lot of people there. So, okay. We played a party, Sandra Palayo's house. So when you say we played 3 gigs, do you mean all together? Or
I think while the band was still, also the Washington Hall Black Flag show.
Oh, that's the third one. Okay, so really, okay, that's right. 3 hall shows and 1 party. So I guess that's okay. I was wrong. You're right. 3 official shows.
Yeah. And so as things did back then, I mean, like, the late 70s, early 80s in Seattle was really tough. It was really hard to get any traction doing anything. You would practice, you'd practice as much as you could and try to get out there and play your songs and do your things. And, but there was nothing happening. You'd have to rent a hall to do a show. And if it was successful, maybe 50 people would show up. And if it was successful, maybe somebody wouldn't, sneak in the kitchen and trash the place, as happened a million times. So that means you could do another show at that hall. But,
The Cheaters did that once at a show.
Oh, absolutely.
You guys, the show got closed down. It was a mentor show. And I don't know if you guys played on the bill, but it was in that hall on Capitol Hill, the one that has all the different rooms in it. It's
Sure.
the something ballroom. Anyways, but you guys were out on the fire escape, just causing hell, causing trouble. And the fire department came and closed the show down.
Well, I remember the Cheaters, Ice-9, and the Mentors.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
I think it if it didn't, it might have, if it got shut down, it was probably after it played, because I have some photos of the Mentors that night. So I know.
No, they played. Yeah, there was
But
Yeah.
so the veins, everybody kind of goes their different ways, sort of. Although there was the missing link, was another incarnation of many of the same people, and there was Cleavage, was another band that was an incarnation of, there was you and Duff and Andy, John Conti, there was John Blattenbauer, there was Jeff Larson, and that core of people had several bands that maybe would last. If it was a good year, maybe it'd last the most part of a year, but usually it wasn't a good year. And, you might last 6 months, 8 months, which was a long time if you're a teenager, or if you're, 20 years old or whatever, that seemed like a long time. And you'd get bored that, hey, we're not getting anywhere. We're sitting here practicing, we're doing our best, and still all our shows get canceled. People get in fights. The police come, not because they're against punk rock, is because, there wasn't that anti punk rock police like you hear about in Los Angeles and stuff, right? People would come because somebody smashed a window or broke into a car, or somebody did something stupid. That's why the police would come, or the windows were open and you get 1,000 complaints about loud music. And the bands didn't last, right? They, and so the Veins broke up whenever it was, sometime in 1980, and a couple other bands formed, the Missing Link and Cleavage, and there was another one too, right? Another band that I'm forgetting, that started around the same time.
Was I in it?
Say again?
Was I in it? No.
I even forget who is in. It was either you or Andy would have been, but so anyway, so the 80s go on, or the year 1980 goes on. Everybody's flailing around. It gets to be 1981, and then what happens? How did the living start?
Okay, so the Veins broke up because I think Andy was right about the Veins, like that. I was taking it maybe too seriously. I wanted us to be more professional, and I was putting that pressure on Duff and Andy, to like, let's take it to the next level. And I think they just wanted to have fun at that time, at that age. And so
they were probably 16 at the time.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. 15, 16, something, 17. And so, they did the Cleavage thing. And it bugged me at first. I was like, what's it? It's a joke band. Cleavage, what are they doing? And Johnny's in the band. How did he get in on that? And so they did that for a while. And they even had their house in the U District, Cleveland.
Sure.
Yeah. And so that house, I remember Steve Baders came to that house after the Dead Boys played at the Paramount, and he was in there in that party after the show in Cleveland, and he was spitting on the floor being a punk, and they didn't like it. And so I don't know who did it, but they started a big, I think Duff and
Uh-oh.
because he was, I think all the party had. But anyways, so I'll tell you, I must have been in between bands, or I was playing. I usually played in two bands at once. I like to try to play drums in one and guitar in another if I could, and that's what I did when I was doing the rockabilly. I played drums in the Four Bad Dudes and played guitar and sang, and I sang in the other one, both bands, but in the Kitty Cats. So, but I was missing out on punk too, because there was a great punk thing going on. And there was a point where, now I don't know when this was, I think this was before the Living, but I got to do my ultimate hardcore thing. And I did a gig with the Farts because Tommy was in Sweden and couldn't make it home for this gig opening for D.O.A. So I played, like, I had to learn like 20 songs in 10 days or something. And we went out there. It was at Danceland USA. It was super hot. It was like, summertime, and it was like a heat wave. And upstairs was over 100 degrees. I think you and Joey Shithead were, excuse me, Joey, yeah, well, I'll call him Shithead. Joey Shithead, we were talking about Dance Land and how hot it got up there. But anyways, we played with D.O.A. It was a really great show. And then then I had no punk band to play in. And I was really, I mean, that was the height of my super fast downstroke, just hardcore bar chords. And I wanted to play. And so what I was noticing by 81 was that some of this hardcore stuff was just, it had no sense of humor. It was just so serious. And it was fun to go to the shows and fly around and everything, but the actual music and I don't know, some of the people just took it too seriously. So I wanted to do something that was kind of more melodic, more musical, but punk rock still. And that's when I was thinking, God, maybe I could get Duff to play in a band with me, and we could do something like, since he plays drums, and he plays guitar and he plays bass, maybe we could switch off. And that was really the thing I wanted to do. I wanted to have a cool punk rock band that was more of an ode to the old, 70s, more melodic type of punk, anthemic type punk bands, a little less on the hardcore. But anyways, so I remember exactly going over to Cleveland and talking to Duff about this and saying, trying to talk him into it really, and saying, Duff, this could be really cool. We could switch off. And, I don't know if I already had John Conti in mind as a singer, because, we'd worked together in Missing Link. But something like that, like John came in pretty soon after that. And that's how it got started. I think Duff was sort of finishing up Cleavage, and he wasn't really doing a lot at that time. So that was that little bit of time that we had, so we could play in our last band together. So that was 81. And as you know, all we did is play a few shows, and we recorded a couple live shows. And yeah, we did this one. The last show I think we did was at that St. Joe's on Capitol Hill, and it was a big fight, and these jocks came in, and it was a freaking rumble riot thing. And I think after that, I'm really not sure. God, I got this awful whistle sometimes, like an old man. But anyways, I'm really not sure, what led to me leaving the band, except that maybe my attitude, it could have been my attitude.
Yeah, because I think I remember that St. Joseph's Social Hall show, and my band might have been on that bill. I mean, we, it was whatever. But that was one like somebody snuck in the kitchen. And it was sort of
That
the end.
sounds like
It was sort of the end. What's that?
It was a big hall, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it was very big. And I remember seeing John Conti's old band, the Laughing Sam, play at that same place maybe a year earlier. He had another band that played there, because so the St. Joseph's was sort of, it was the hall that you could rent. It was maybe $75, and
Good deal.
Maybe you had to pay a $75 damage deposit. But I think that day somebody, it was maybe the last of the St. Joseph. Somebody maybe broke into the back room and wrecked a bunch of stuff, or somebody stole some food out of their refrigerators, or something. Was just a bad scene.
But there were some jocks that came down there looking for trouble. I know.
Yeah.
Todd, being the badass bass player that he is, he didn't take any shit, and he'd like beat up a couple, 3 guys easy, at once.
and so like, maybe you're thinking after that show, it's like, oh, screw this, it's like, and I think everybody was at that point tired of all the fucking fighting and stuff like that, like at the shows, the hard people started seeing on TV by 1981 that, there's hardcore. That means you go fight, and, you don't even listen to the music. You just go there and put your elbows out and start bashing people in the face. It's like, well, No, that's like this TV show version of going to, everybody's still trying to play good music, but it's kind of like, and you want to play fast music, but it's getting kind of ruined by all these boneheads. And I think everybody sort of mentioned that, like right around 1981, it was getting tired of just this, you know, jock hardcore, just going out there trying to hurt people in the audience. And
Yeah, that gets really old. When people. I mean, I was a real, you know, I participated in a lot of that, but I never got into the idea of trying to hurt somebody on purpose or trying to screw stuff up. I was
of course not.
around having a good time, always helping a guy up if they needed help.
Right. And
You know,
that's where it kind of crossed the line. Like, when people first started playing fast music and everyone would be, just bashing around, and it was fine. And then something happened where, people with their elbows out and doing their mosh dance and bashing into people, and even like, because there's so much fun you can have as a 18-year-old or a 20-year-old, pushing people around and stuff, if it's all fun. But after people start just intentionally, you know, trying to hurt people, or grabbing people who are not interested in your little punk circle and throwing them in there, it's like, just leave everybody alone, let everybody find their own level of what they want to do. um, and I think both Duff and like Andy had mentioned that, everybody mentioned that sometime around that time, people getting, and it could have been that one particular show that it's like, all right, enough of this. So at some point you're just like, this is this is kind of getting pushed too far. Maybe is that what you're thinking? Because I don't really remember. I was probably there, but I do not remember exactly what happened, and how everybody left after the night.
I know that there was snow that night, and a friend of mine who came to the show on the way home, I found him in his crashed car, and because the roads were icy, and he
Well,
crashed. He got all messed up.
wow, what that
I'll never forget that.
that's certainly non-good. Let me see if I can find the date of that. Um, Polish Hall, St. Joseph's was December 11th,
There would,
1981.
yeah, that's when it was. I think.
St. Joseph Hall, Silly Killers, Fastbacks in the Living, December 11th. And that would have made that would have been about right.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, all right, enough of this baloney. What did you do? Hard to remember exactly what you're thinking. What happened, but you're just like, okay, maybe this is not panning out the way it was supposed to try to start a, more melodic, more, you know still kick-ass punk rock, but not slam dancing necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. I don't know what I was thinking, what I was trying to do. I think that it might have been too all over the place. Just the various songs that we had in our set, it might have been a little too all over the place for Duff. I think the Duff wanted something more straightforward. And
Mhm.
and then I think tension probably between me and Duff. But it didn't really, it's not like we stopped being friends. I didn't see him as much anymore because he was doing the living with Greg. They got Greg, and then I didn't, I wasn't crazy about the band because it was so different than what we were started off doing. But they seemed to have more. They got a lot more momentum going, and
Mhm.
more of a market maybe for that kind of straight ahead hardcore type punk rock.
Right. But strangely, it was, exactly the opposite direction that you were thinking of going in. But I don't remember there being a huge slam dancing thing, seeing the second incarnation of the living. It was the right kind of music to do that, but somehow maybe just the places that they ended up playing were not quite so inviting to the punk jocks.
I did I did read somebody, I think it was on the Living 1982 podcast. I mean the group. I think somebody posted something about seeing the Living at Hibble and Hyde's, and that it was just magical. Everybody had a really good time, and it was their own personal slam pit, but it was like just everybody's having fun. Nobody was getting hurt. So they probably at at the right shows with the right people, they probably did get people going.
Yeah. And I was not yet 21 yet, so I couldn't go to Hibble and Hyde's,
I
which is
know.
so funny to think about that my friends' bands who are all 18 years old at the time,
Hmm.
and they could get into play, but we couldn't get in to go watch them. It's like,
See 'em.
oh
And I saw the Professionals, Jones and Cook's band. I
yeah,
saw them outside of was that Astor
oh sure,
Park down by the Cinerama.
yeah,
And
oh sure, Astor Park.
they were playing,
was happening.
and I was watching their butts, because you could see them from outside on the sidewalk.
Right. You could see in the stage from Fifth Avenue, right? So
Yep,
you could sort of see
exactly.
the stage, but it was from the back, and it wasn't
Right.
it wasn't even a very good view. I remember looking in on some bands, and then finally I turned 21, so I could actually go to that place, because they did end up with a lot of pretty cool bands for sure.
I want to tell you something, a funny story about a Living show. We did that Rex show, and we were underage. So they were really uptight about it. And they made us stay. We played, think we played with the Moberleys at that
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. But anyways, they made us stay outside, while we were waiting to play. And we were underneath this, big sign, billboard sign. And I felt something hit my head, and a bird shit on my head. And I was so pissed. I was like, God damn it, they made us stay out here, and I have to be out here, and I get shit on by a bird. And then people are trying to tell me, oh, it's good luck, it's good luck.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
yeah,
good luck to be
right.
dumped on by a bird. Well, good for you to consider it good luck.
And another show I want to mention about the Living was when I was listening to you and Joey Shithead's conversation. They were talking about the Living going up there to Canada, and Joey didn't seem to remember the first time. And the first time, my version, or the one that Living that I was in, went up there, and we opened for D.O.A. at the Smiling Buddha, and it was really good, fun show. There wasn't a lot of people, but afterwards we went back to Joey's place, and they stole a bunch of beer. I don't know if it was a keg or a case. They just always were able to come up with all this beer, and
Well,
they brought it back to the place, and we just had a really good time. And they were very, very good hosts, to
I think Todd
Americans.
talked about that they
Uh-oh.
they snuck over the fence at a brewery and nabbed a bunch of beer so they could bring it to the party. And Todd who's a wonderful cat, and he didn't know what he was getting into. He just goes up to Vancouver to play a show, which is pretty exciting unto itself, especially, being Todd was probably 18 and it was his first band. Ends up in a car with a bunch of Canadians, and they go on the rampage trying to snag some beer for their party.
That might have been the second time they went up there when
Oh,
I
good.
wasn't in the band, but I don't know. I think that they steal beer every time anybody comes over or something.
Yeah, right. Or anytime
That's the way
nobody's
of the
over.
beer.
Put your money together. No, I don't have enough. Or it's too late. I remember in Canada, you'd have to buy beer at the beer store. go to the beer store and get some brewskis. And
Right.
once they were closed, you could get off sales at a bar, but it was the same price as, buying beer at a bar, which of course do that.
Expensive. Yeah. So at that show where we opened up for D.O.A. in Vancouver, I don't know what was with my drumsticks, if I forgot them or they were all broken, or I had to borrow drumsticks. And so from Chuck Biscuits, I borrowed these sticks, and they were like marching band sticks. They were like, I don't know why they were so thick. And I mean, I guess that's just what he liked. So he could get that really heavy sound. By the time I was done and ready to switch instruments with Duff off the drums, my hands were like all blistery and torn up from those drumsticks, man.
Wow.
But your adrenaline's flowing and you don't give a damn.
No, you can forget about the blisters on the inside of your hand playing guitar. I mean, it will still hurt, but like then you end up with blisters on your fingertips, and then your hand is wrecked.
Luckily, that didn't happen. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about a little bit too was, while there was some really good punk bands in Seattle, there was like other scenes too, and I don't think you guys have touched on that much, but I know we're supposed to be talking about punk rock, but I think it's important to point out that Seattle had an amazing scene back in the day. Can you see that one?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so there it is, the Seattle Syndrome. And that I just listened to this to kind of get in the mood for our talk. And there's a lot of variety on there. And there's a lot of good stuff. And I mean, I forget sometimes how many good bands are on there, and that how many people I knew and played in bands with. Like you got the Refusers on there, the Farts, the Fastbacks, Jim Bassnight's on there. We got the Puds, which is Rob Morgan's band. My band that I was in at the time was an art rock band, the Max, and so I think sometimes, people forget that there was a pretty thriving scene if you put it all together, and if you wanted to go out and see different bands, there was usually something going on, whether
Sure.
the Blackouts or the Beakers or some of those art bands or even the rockabilly scene. There's a rockabilly song on that comp by the
Party 88.
Yeah, Party 88, you know it. And
I think at one point, I mean, we loved the Seattle Syndrome album, because it was the only actual record compilation of Seattle bands that existed at that point.
Yeah.
And I think at one point, like, we even started a Seattle Syndrome album band where we were going to learn all the songs on that record and play them. And we got together and, learned the Puds and learned the Refusers and learned the Fart song and learned X15. And we learned all the songs on that record. And then it really never got past a practice or two for sure. But we thought about it. I mean, we loved all those songs. And
yeah,
especially, it's 1981, like we were 20, you guys were like
I was 20 in 81,
18, 17.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. There was a lot of ambition in Seattle at that time.
Yeah.
And bands like all of our, like the rockabilly bands could find shows at clubs, and the Blackouts could find shows at clubs, and maybe X15 could, but
but punk rock,
the punk rock ones, the Farts and the Refusers, the Fastbacks, we couldn't get proper shows at regular bars. I mean, there was the Rex, and we could play on one night a week on Wednesday or whatever night it was that they had punk music, and they put together great shows.
Yeah,
but nobody was 21 yet, so you had to wait outside until it was your turn to play. I mean, it's just terrible. Like, and so it's not that surprising to me that bands would not last very long. It's like, God, how much more crap can we put up with to try to play a show? And, like if you're 18, 20-year-old kid, you're just like, screw this. I want to do something else, and just, it's funny thinking about these old days, because it was very much like that, you'd try to practice constantly. I mean, bands practice, we didn't have anything else to do. So we practiced all the time, and you could play the Gorilla Room maybe, and you could play Rex one night a week, and I could, or you could have a hall show,
What was that other? There was some club that was down in Pioneer Square, and I remember seeing the Refusers down there, and it was pretty early. I don't know if you remember that one, or
it was not the Gorilla Room.
No, not the Gorilla Room.
The Hibble and Hyde.
It was a pretty big. I don't know. It's a pretty big place, as I recall.
Right, there was a place, didn't like Black Flag played another club, and maybe the Gun Club played whatever that club was. I don't remember, because I couldn't get into those clubs.
Yeah.
And you get so pissed off. It's like, what, Black Flag is playing at a bar in Pioneer Square and we can't go? Or the Gun Club, or all these bands that you really wanted to see. And it's like, well, this is stupid. All, our older friends could all go. It's like, oh, it was so great, man. It's like, shut up. Like, and some people had fake IDs, and some people were bold and just, ran past the door guy or something like that. But if you couldn't do that, you just couldn't. The Ramones played at the Rainbow Tavern in the U District, and we could stand outside and watch them, and that's about it. It's like, wow. I mean, the Rainbow was just a small club. It was, and with the Ramones being everyone's favorite band, it's like, wait, how does this, why, how,
Nowadays it seems like kids get fake IDs all the time so easily.
Yeah.
We never occurred to us nobody ever got fake IDs.
Right.
We just had to wait, and it seemed like a long wait.
If you had a brother or sister, if you had a brother or a sister that was, roughly your same age, you could borrow their ID or something like that, but that was about it, otherwise the people would look at your ID and it's like, no, you're out, keeping the ID. So you're, just mega screwed. It was tough. It was tough growing up here, Chris.
So I was looking at this rag too. This
Yeah.
See that one?
Yeah, little backfire.
It says backfire. Yeah, backfire. So you guys are in here. This is from 1983, and the Fast Facts have a nice interview in here, and so does Jim Bassnight.
Yeah.
And so I read both those earlier today, and it was fun, just the perspective, the way you guys interacted and how you conducted your interview. But what is really something is on the back is this slick ad. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember that. That ad very well. 10-minute.
Remember that ad? So that's 10-minute warning.
Yeah.
Right, and they got a full page, ad magazine. So I was thinking there must have been some backing, or somebody has a little bit of money to put in an ad, in a nice ad like that.
Yeah, I couldn't comment on that because I have no idea, who put that in there or why. Is it an ad for something, or is it just a picture of 10-minute war?
It's a picture of them, then it says 10-minute warning in the top corner, And in the bottom right-hand corner, it says, "See them live with Black Flag August 7th at the Eagle's Nest, and watch for their new EP." So it was kind of a, 2-for-1, an ad for a gig and then an ad for upcoming EP. But
Right.
but I just look at these pictures because these guys, Paul's in there, and I played with Paul in a couple bands, too. And all these guitar players, there was a lot, I gotta say, there was a lot of good guitar players out of the Seattle punk scene. Of course, you being one of them, but
I'd like to
got a
think
lot of people that you're a good guitar player. Yeah. After all these years, you finally got good.
I'd like to think that that's true, that there were a lot of cool guitar players in the Seattle music scene back then.
Yeah, there were. We had a lot of players, and like a lot of cool punk rock guitar players. Tommy from the Farts, Paul Soldier, Duff, myself a little bit, although I didn't play guitar that much. After the Living, all I did was play guitar, rockabilly. I don't think I played any more punk rock guitar, but you and just like, did I say Chris Harvey? Chris Harvey, a lot of these guys, and they had their cool names like.
Yeah, Slats, definitely. Slats definitely,
I don't know.
led the charge around that time.
Yeah, it was. Things happened really fast, and looking back, well, it's hard to believe that I played in so many bands. Now it's hard to get one band together. It's hard to get a band to practice, and let alone, and we were just motivated. We were fired up to do our thing. And
oh yeah, for sure. And there again, it's the time where that's all you could put all your energy into it, listening to records, practicing drums, practicing guitar, writing songs. That's all you did. If you had a job, you would go to the job every, whatever you had to do, and all you were thinking about is getting done so you could go practice with your band, one of your bands. Everybody was totally dedicated, and that's all they did, is just try to,
yeah, I mean, here's a good example of like how much music meant to me and how much work didn't mean. So the Ross Dress for Less store that opened on Aurora, it was on Aurora at about 130th. I helped open that store. That was the first Ross Dress for Less in the whole Northwest. And so I helped open that store, and I was in the shooter department, and it was an okay job, wasn't great, but Bumbershoot came along. And this was back when Bumbershoot was amazing, when you could just see so many great bands for next to nothing. And I wanted some time off to see some bands, and they wouldn't give me the time off. And I just said, well, I guess I won't be coming back in. I blew off that job just because I had to see these bands. I had to go down there and participate, That's how dedicated. Like, I don't know if I ever had any full-time jobs back then. I think it was always part-time jobs so I could do my music. And,
right.
Well, I was going to college too, but, just
everything was subservient to playing music. And that's how it was for everybody, and, even talking to Duff and just going over those times. I mean, everybody was dedicated to playing music in whatever band it was. And, right around 1982, when like, because we're going over why the Living split up, and how everything started changing around 1982, and people were really getting frustrated, and there wasn't a venue to play at. There was nowhere to go. You'd rent your hall shows, lose your deposit, lose money doing hall shows, you could, play at the punk nights at the regular bars, but that was about it. And people really, they just wanted the opportunity to make a cool sounding record. They wanted the opportunity to be like the bands that they liked and the records. Back then nobody had the ultimate album come out that was recorded at a proper studio and sounded like $1,000,000. It was so hard. All that stuff was just like an unattainable goal, I think. I mean, you would probably think the same thing. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, I
I
wish
want a record that I could put on next to one of the other records that I like and be happy with it and be
it'll
proud.
hold up. Yeah. I wish that back then I would have recorded more studio stuff with the various bands I was in
Oh, for sure.
to have, because I was in so many bands. Now, I always say this, but I just like it to be known that, I've been in over 50 bands. And I think about half of those bands I had played in Seattle before I moved to LA in '87. So a good 20 bands or so, 25 bands. And I just wish that I had, taken the time to make sure we went into the studio or found somebody with a little portable recording studio or something.
Right.
Because then you'd have something to show for all this, because you put a lot of work in it, do it, and then have so many things fizzle. And that's, I was busy doing a lot of different things. And, sometimes I wonder if I just would have concentrated more on one thing, maybe something bigger could have come out of it, but yeah, eventually I had to move on because I wanted to be an actor. I went to school to be an actor too. So that's another reason why I did some acting in Seattle, but you got to go to Hollywood, which is really a good thing to do because of the music thing too. So, but that's what I did eventually to do, just how I could deal with it and the frustrations of, so I guess by '87, when I moved, that was the beginning of sort of the grungy thing that was kind of starting then, huh? 86, 87.
Yeah, maybe the perhaps the tides were turning a little bit, and then by
Green River.
by 1988 things were totally going in the grunge direction, I
Yeah,
suppose, for sure.
definitely.
Um,
At least something put Seattle on the map, like,
yeah, true.
uh,
If it wasn't you and it wasn't I, then
yeah,
at least our
at least,
city is known for something, and we were there, right?
yeah, we were there when it all happened. Um, yeah, so I don't know, 82, there was still a lot of stuff kind of going on, at least with me. It's like trying to do stuff and maybe not playing as much punk rock, because the rockabilly stuff was, like you said, it was easier to play various places. We could play some country and western honky tonks, and we played, we played the Seafarer Clown Day. It's where the Seafarer Clowns come down and they go to the Mural Amphitheater and parade around, and the kids, and we were down there playing, and it was great. But yeah, I don't know.
Everybody's got a, everybody was loaded with energy,
Yeah,
and it was so easy to get frustrated. It's so easy to get beat down, and so easy, for something that you're working so hard at, and you just, over and over, the hall would get trashed, and everybody
yeah,
loses all the money they put in, or people would fly off, and just
I know at that Black Flag show that we played, um, the PA people found out that it was a punk rock show, and they pulled out. And so I offered up my PA, which, we had bought to make the single,
mhm,
to make the a Vein single.
mhm.
And And I really didn't, I didn't want to move it out of the practice place. I didn't really want to do it. So I said I'd let him use it, but I wanted some money for it. I wanted to get paid maybe $50. And maybe I even said 100. I probably didn't, but I know I said at least $50. And they did not like that. Black Flag was pissed. And that singer, Ron Reyes, he got so mad he fucking threw a beer over the mixing board of my PA when they were playing. So that, talk about, you work so hard for something and then it gets ruined, that really sucked. But I was the jerk for charging money for it.
Right. I suppose if they had the PA that they were going to get, they would have had to pay for that too. I mean, nobody's going to lug a PA system around for no money.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, that was the one thing that you always had to count on. You brought down. It was usually, like $75 for the hall, $75 damage deposit, and the PA was $75 or $100, maybe $150. I remember, Conrad Uno, our buddy who was, the Pop Llama Records guy later, he was a PA guy, and we would, call him up, say, can you can you do sound at this thing? And he'd come down there, and he was a wonderful cat. And there's just some super funny stories about, mic stands getting broken or beers flying around, it's like, and, the whole climate of, and you also think of, these old people that they were old at the time that were renting out their halls that we would play at. And, they were probably 60-year-old retired people that are, and the, an 18-year-old kid comes in and says, yeah, we want to rent your hall. Oh, we're having a something, you'd have to lie. You can't say, oh, we're having a loud punk rock show with a bunch of belligerent jerks.
We're having a dance.
Yeah, we're having a dance.
That's what we
always say. We're having a dance. It's like, well, how many people do you think? Well, there might be 20 or 30 people show up. It's like, okay, well, $75. Here's the damage deposit. And, half the time everything would go right, and you'd, spend the time cleaning up, or half the time somebody would, I remember the crepe paper, the wheels of stuff, you'd put up some decorations, and someone would tear it down and get beer on it, and the ink would soak out into the dance floor, the wood dance floor. It's like, this floor is ruined. It's going to be, $500 to fix it. You owe us $500. I was like, you're not getting $500 out of us. Nobody, possibly could do it. If you want us to come and sand the floor, we'll do that. Like, no, get out of here. So the next time you wanted to play at that hall, someone else would have to go in there. It's like, oh, we're having a dance, and I think 20 people are showing up. I mean, it's just the same thing. I look at this list of shows of, the Polish Hall, St. Joseph's Hall, the Serbian Hall, all these, the UCT Hall, Danceland USA, the Gorilla Room, all these places that we played at, in those old days, and it's just amazing to think of how resourceful we were, and fearless and resourceful. It's like, well, we have bands, we are going to play, nobody will have us, so we'll have to put on our own things. And
like play at somebody's garage, at a party or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like, well, there's nothing to do this weekend. Well, my parents are gone. We can play in the garage. Like, we're there. 3 bands and a keg's all you need.
Serious. Yeah. Well,
and, I totally miss those days of being resourceful and out of our minds.
I got to say one thing that I got to put on the record. It has nothing to do with this, but Kim Warnick was the Living's first bass player.
Yeah. And we know that at least one show she doesn't.
Right show. That's right. And I'd forgotten. I mean, because when Todd came in, the guy was such a phenomenon. that you just kind of forget, Todd, you know.
Right. It was
And
it
so
was
I forgot that that Kim
a new
was with
beginning.
us, and she helped us out, she got us started.
But that was at an art gallery with IE, right? I believe
That
that.
sounds right.
Yeah.
And so she was playing in the fastbacks too, then, right?
Yeah, that would have been August 81, I think, or summertime 1981.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yes. You didn't mind her playing in another band?
Go do whatever you want. It's like whatever. I probably was in another band at that time too. I don't remember exactly, but no,
Yeah.
everybody should do as much as they can. And, it doesn't ever seem like there was a problem. Oh, we need to choose between this band's show and this other band's show. If you had a show, that was great. And all your other bandmates would go to it too, because if you had a show, it was something fun for you to do, but it was also something fun for your friends to do too. And now I wasn't in IE and I wasn't in The Living, but I was happy that you get a show because it's like, okay, well, this Saturday night, then there's something to do is you can go to the show and see your friends' bands. It's not quite as much fun as playing, but it's also, really, really great. I think there was a lot of camaraderie in our music scene here that
it was a family.
Yeah, some of the other music scenes didn't have. Like, I think Vancouver, BC, I think a lot of the people were a little bit more, a little bit more competitive there. But there was no prize in Seattle in 1981, 1982. Nobody was going to get anywhere. So anything you could do was celebrated. There was not much jealousy, I don't think, if I remember correctly. Not a lot of jealousy. If you got a show, well, we can have 3 bands. We already have 3 bands, but next time you guys can play, or whatever it was. And everybody would go to the show and have equal amounts of fun.
Well, I tell you, I admit to feeling jealous first time I saw Cleavage, because I was like, there's Duff and Andy, my guys, and there's Johnny Vinyl. I played with him and before, and it's like I felt like, oh, I'm missing out. I felt jealous, and that's one of the few times I felt jealous back then. Of
Yeah.
I want to be up there.
Yeah. But then it was just a matter of a few months before The Living started. It was another combination of the same people.
I think that weeks and months back then were more like months and years.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though it seemed, I mean, we look back and it's amazing. We played in so many bands in so short a time and all this stuff, but really it didn't seem like it was that short a time. It seemed like the right amount of time.
Oh, for sure. Of course it was. And you'd get frustrated and you'd, quit your band and do something else, but it seemed like, well, we gave this as much time as it needed and now let's do something else.
Yeah,
and then you look back and some of those bands lasted for 4 months or 5 months. The Zip Dads,
yeah,
like some of the bands that only played a short amount of time, but you packed a lot of excitement into those few months that the band was going, for sure.
Yeah, Zip Dads. That was Scott's band, Scott Dittman, right?
Yeah. There was back then. There was no. Oh, I don't think we want to do that show. Anytime anybody asked you to do anything, it was like, hell yeah, we're doing that.
Yeah, jump on it.
Yeah, because
yeah,
you needed it. I mean, we need it now too, but now everybody's got jobs and other things and stuff like that. So it's hard, as you were saying, it's hard to have one band now, whereas back then you could be in 2 bands or 3 bands. And it's like, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be an hour late for practice. Can we practice at 4 instead of 3 because I got to finish another band practice and get on the bus and go to the other place. People we was just doing the best we can.
Well, one thing that I like that I want to mention was the time that we brought Jane County up from LA or from New York, whatever, and did that show. I felt that was really great because it was bringing back old style punk rock to Seattle. And I don't know, in '88, what was going on locally, if there was much punk rock. But that was really great show that I'm glad we were able to pull off. You know, did you get to, did you go to that?
Oh yeah, we played at it.
That's right. The Fastbacks were on that bill.
Yeah, we opened the show for sure.
Right. So was it just you and the Fastbacks and us? It was just the two bands.
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were supposed to. That was supposed to be videotaped, and I just would have loved to have seen that. Somebody didn't show up with the videotape, and so much for that.
Oh no.
I can't even remember some of these bills who I played with and who I didn't.
Right, right. Of course, it is.
Glad you reminded me that you guys were on that bill.
It was June 6th, 1980.
It was 88, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have it.
Yeah, so that was giving people a taste of the old school. Jane County, she was really something, you know, and her songs were really great. And that was it. She had songs. She really, you know, put an effort into writing well-written songs, you know, and that's important, as you know.
Yeah, yeah. I like a good, well-written song, and I also like a good, poorly written song.
Yeah, just a riff, just fucking. I know what you mean. Like,
yeah, I like some of the
chords.
greatest music, and I like some pretty terrible music too. Is amongst my favorites of all time.
Yeah, I like it all too.
Yeah, yeah,
I
man.
guess, I don't know. I guess we've covered a lot of stuff. I guess, yeah, we covered enough. I'm sure Todd talked about practicing in his basement and how that was. It's pretty tight down there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think there's a photo or two from down in Todd's basement, and I think it was Mike McCready said that he grew up in the neighborhood, and you guys let him come down and hang out for a few practices here and there too.
Good. Glad you brought that up, because when I moved back to Seattle in '93, I was at some show at the Rock Candy, and I was hanging outside in the front talking to Damon Gaden. He was the doorman, and Mike came up and he said, Chris, back then in the day of the living, we used to give you guys a lot of shit about your Sex Pistols poster on the wall. We gave you shit about punk rock, but you know what? You guys really knew where it was at. You knew it. You knew what was going on. And I said, and this is like Mike McCready, rock star. And I was like, man, that's cool of you to say, because we like to get that tip of the hat every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got to have at least one foot in punk rock if you're gonna play music. There's lots of great kinds of music, but you gotta have a foot in there.
Yeah, I'm always amazed when people don't know anything about it or don't like it, and just it's like, I don't know, man. Punk rock changed my life. That's bottom line. Is I was really into music, and I broke my leg skiing my junior year, and I had all this time to just sit and think. And I got Rocket to Russia would just come out, and Van Halen's first album had just come out. And I started listening to those two records a lot on the couch healing up. And I said, this is what I want to do. I wanted to play guitar. And we were trying to play like Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin and a lot of these guitar players. Me and Garth and a handful of us wanted to play like that.
Mm-hmm.
I realized after listening to punk rock and Van Halen that you don't have to be the best guitar player in the world, although Van Halen kind of was. But I realized that, this is something I can do. I can put my frustrations, my feelings, everything that I've had in my life, I can put into it. And I did. It's a good thing that punk rock came along. How about you? How did you get turned on to punk rock?
Somehow, if you had Rocket to Russia by the Ramones and the first Van Halen record, if you had both those records, I'm pretty sure your course would be well charted.
I mean, I wasn't that experienced, but when I made that Veins record, I listened to it earlier, and it's got Ramones, the rhythm, all the downstrokes, power chords, And then it's got some wild leads, nothing like Van Halen, but I was trying to play some intricate, cool leads, and it's like
exciting music. Yeah.
I guess they did help me a lot. Those two
Yeah. Well,
bands.
the Ramones and Van Halen are
Can't go wrong.
you can't.
What about you? How did you get turned on to punk rock? Was there somebody an older person that turned you on to it? Or
Mm, and it was in high school. I mean, we got the first Ramones record in high school
yeah,
in whatever year that was, 1976.
76, yeah.
And we didn't know what punk rock was, but we knew that whatever this record was something that we hadn't heard before. And we thought it sort of sounded like bubblegum, rock a little bit.
Totally. I thought they sounded like the Beach Boys the first time I heard them.
Or like bubblegum, because the beats were really, really simple. And we didn't know what kind of music it was because nobody told us, but we're like, we really like this record. And then, we started to hear about the British bands.
Did you read the magazines?
Of course. Yeah.
Circus and all those.
But we didn't really know what the Ramones were at that point, whether we didn't get those magazines or they weren't in the magazines that we had. But it just wasn't on our radar what the Ramones were. You look at the cover, it's like, this record's weird. This doesn't look like a regular band. The sound of the record doesn't sound like any other band. You know what
I tell people? If you want to learn how to play the bass or rhythm guitar, get the first Ramones album, put it on stereo, put it all to one side, and you got the bass. Put it all to the other side, and you got guitar. You can learn to play punk rock bass along with the Ramones from that album, because they mix it guitar in one.
Right, and it's it's downstroke playing, but it has so much verve to it. It has so much, which get a little of that gets lost every year. Back in 1977, the bands that were inspired by the Ramones, they all had a little bit of rock and roll swagger to them, and then as the years go on, it gets more mechanical sounding. And the Ramones are trying to play mechanically, but they couldn't help but put their own style into things. And
that you mentioned the British bands. When I heard Generation X, that band was another band that really was one of the first of maybe 4 or 5 bands that changed my life.
Absolutely. First Generation
X album is
absolute, trajectory changer in my book. I mean, it was just everything we wanted to be.
And I got to put this in. I know I don't need to be bragging or anything, but coming fresh out of the veins and going to London, I spent that month in London, which I didn't talk about here, but I'll talk about it some other time. But I met all these bands that I'd been listening to. I met the UK Subs, and I tried to audition for them because they needed a bass player, but a bass player, bass player, and they already got it. And I go out to see these bands. I was really into the neo-mod bands, like the Chords, the Lambrettas, Squire, Secret Affair. Remember some of those bands?
Sure, of course.
And Parkas. Yeah, and so I was seeing all these mod bands around town and going to like Oi shows. I saw the Angelic Upstarts, but then I met Billy Idol in a club, and they were auditioning guitar players. And so I actually, I got to audition for them. And that was a life-changing experience too, because here I thought I was going to be in Generation X.
Yeah. How different life would
my life would have been. Yeah. Who it might have killed me, I don't know. Billy,
who knows if
Billy, like he got interviewed on Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy Kimmel asked him, so I hear you've done $1 million worth of drugs in your lifetime. And Billy gave him a grin and said to him, millions. So Billy Idol's did millions of dollars worth of drugs. I don't know if it would have lasted that long.
Yeah. I don't know about all that, because I'm just glad, you know, if I thought that I'd wasted that much money, it's like, wow. I'll bet he's thinking, God, I kind of wish I had those $1 million worth of drug money now. But of course, you can't change what's already passed.
Yeah, and he's supposedly clean and sober now.
Good.
He's gonna do a residency in Vegas or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Let him come to you, you know?
Yeah. We can make it to Vegas. Well, anyway, I should probably
Okay.
cut her out.
Okay,
We
wrap it
hope
up.
you enjoyed this episode of the Living 1982 podcast. Circle back for weekly episodes and find out about each week's special guests and where to stream the music by following the band's release on Instagram at The Living 1982.